Weird science
is the revolution.
Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong, number 7, written by Brian Buccellato, with art by Christian Duce, Tom Derenick, Luis Guerrero, Richard Starkins, and Tyler Smith. And we have the penultimate issue to this series overall, and while I thought the last 2 issues of this book were really amping things up for that big final battle, I'm like, oh my god, this book is finally on track to be that thing that I wanted to be this entire time. This issue now, you have all the reveals, and by all the reveals, I mean one reveal after another, which should be even like wow you, one after the other, even more than the last. It just kind of fell flat in my mind.
It did. It fell flat, and I keep thinking this should be a lot more fun. And just as an aside, we talked about this more at length on our Patreon account for our DC Comics Spotlight. So if you want to listen to a longer conversation, go there. But even then, we said, these wow moments, you can tell they're supposed to be wow moments. I mean, they kind of are, but the way they're presented just is lackluster. I mean, you get some weird plays in this.
Even the idea where it's like everybody's converging on Metropolis. There's a beacon there that's bringing all the Titan monsters there. All the heroes are converging there to meet them to hold off the line. And you have the big old Bat Jaeger, Batman's Jaeger that he's built with Cyborg and the Flash. So they're working together to build it. And then the Green Lantern show up, and they have their Green Lantern Robo. And every Green Lantern that we have here, 5, I believe, they're just, here's an arm. It's almost like a Power Rangers Voltron kind of thing where they've come together with their willpower to make one robot, when my mind is like, why don't you make 5 robots? Because that would be better in my mind,
And when you have Voltron, and when you have, those sort of things, the fun of it is you're fighting individually to then become something huge. This just looks like they're like, okay, you're the leg. Who wants to be the arm? This looks like something that
Kyle Rayner would just do on his own, personally.
Yeah, and so I thought, we were joking about, I thought that you had like the big construct, and then you were going to have individual things like shooting things like pew, pew, like doing some other, but no, you're almost limiting your Green Lantern, which was almost, to me, supposed to be a wow moment anyway, that you had the whole Green Lantern Corps, at least the Earth Lanterns there, and you had a bunch of other characters that joined in the battle finally, but everything seems less, and when you do see things, all I could think of is, that should be more fun than it is. You have Damian and Jason Todd, even them together.
They've got a transformer. Yeah.
And they come in and right away they're in like a Batwing type of deal. And they're like, should we do it now for the upgrade? No, Damian, wait. Can we do it now? Yeah.
Yes.
Boom, it's done. And then we move on. Like,
there was never
a way. Yeah, exactly. I was screaming. So you end up where things that should be huge ended up feeling a little bit small. And I wasn't having, and there's a lot of them. And I think they went that route. Instead of having 2 really big moments, hey, we'll have 7 of these things in a row, but you never really get to settle in with anything, because then we move to the next deal. But the big play here are you have these 3 Titans, while you have Godzilla still chained up, below Atlantis.
At the bottom of Atlantis, yeah.
So you have these 3 other Titans there, and they're fighting them, also fighting Mechagodzilla again, which with Lex in it should be a wow moment, but that kind of gets lost in the shuffle as well. Batman shows up, I got a mecha, bitch, and that gets lost in the shuffle. It's weird. And so when you're going through this all, then you get Grodd show up, and he's got Kong.
King Kong and Supergirl under his spell, his mind whammy.
Oh no, I think that Grodd is able to control Supergirl because he's got his big horn of kryptonite. I don't know how that works.
A kryptonite horn on his helmet that amplifies his power to take over Kryptonian. I'm like, I don't think you needed that, but whatever. It's there.
And then I'm thinking, why then would that affect Kong less? But he's kind of there with Supergirl anyway. But then once they break, and he announces it, or they kind of realizes it, and then they break the helmet, and then Supergirl's just talking to Kong. Hey, Kong, we should do this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, all right, I don't know if Kong knows what that means. So all this going on, one of the big moments, too, is Guy Gardner. He ends up, because the mecha kind of gets ripped apart. Again, you're a construct, but then Kong rips an arm off.
And then stomps Guy Gardner good.
How does that work? And then he ends up stomping. He gets stomped.
R.I.P. Guy.
Yeah, Guy's dead. And they kind of like, oh no, Guy's dead. I'm like, all right, let's go.
One of the things we've been talking about, because I think that every time we've reviewed this, like at length, has been on our Patreon-only Spotlight, because it keeps being picked by the badasses of the Get Fresh crew. But you keep talking about the idea of having more fun in this and just maybe some references to the old. And I don't know what they can get away with, because these are the legendary versions of these monsters from the legendary studios. But when you have the Green Lantern Robo come together, I kind of want to call back to the Showa era of Godzilla. Maybe it looked like a Jet Jaguar. Something along those lines could be fun if it just looked maybe even similar to Jet Jaguar, or just something that kind of screams Godzilla. This is just a random mech, and I don't understand the reasons why we have to have the Green Lanterns all be a part of this one mech still.
Yeah, and then again, you have a Mecha Godzilla, Batman showing up in a Bat mech, and they barely do anything against each other because things are jumping in the way, things are jumping in, and it just kind of loses, the fun factor of all this. But I will never think that Green Lantern idea of you make a leg, I'll make an arm, like you're limiting the thing.
Worst decision ever.
One of the big things before, and everybody seemed like this could be fun, but a lot of people did even say to me, listen, they're going to end up doing something with Superman, something with because he could end it. I'm like, nah, you can play some things, whatever. But you did have that first issue where, remember, people lost their mind because it looked like Godzilla had killed Superman. But they even mentioned it again here that he was distracted. You have Shazam. In this, all of a sudden, he just disappears out of his shell that he's healing in. Doesn't say anything to Lois. I'm still convinced that Batman grabbed him. We were talking on our longer review that we think that either got him the sun or did a weekend at Bernie's and started playing Calypso music. We're not sure. But then at the end, he shows up to hey there, Godzilla, we got unfinished business. I'm like, is he going to mess this up?
It's one of those things there where I think they have unfinished business because Godzilla went directly for Superman because he saw him as the alpha of this world and needed to take him out. Now, our other big reveal, the big wow moment they try to show us again here that doesn't do much for me because I just personally wanted more, because we had the League of Assassins go to Skull Island. They took a skull and they brought it to a Lazarus Pit volcano where they just dumped the skull in there, and now we have a gigantic skull crawler from the Kong Skull Island movie. And for some reason, I should have been able to tell just from the way the skull looked, but I wanted it to be one of the leftover skulls of King Ghidorah from Godzilla, King of the Monsters. But the gigantic skull crawler, I have to assume that it killed all the League of Assassins and Ra's al Ghul, because why would you do that? You can't control the monsters. But now it's in Metropolis, and I have to assume that Superman will release Godzilla to go to Metropolis. They'll take on Mecha G, Lex Luthor together, and then King Kong will be taking on the skull crawlers and the rest of the League and the baby skull crawlers.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to section them off.
That's going to be exactly. That's going to be the way to go, because you have the two rivals to these two monsters outside of each other, obviously.
You do have Wonder Woman yell, "Oh my God! Look, the League of Assassins!" and something
I didn't see any League of
much
Assassins.
worse. I don't see them there, but so they're going to fight them. The thing is that it's funny, because when you do see Superman at the end, I don't know if it's a Weekend at Bernie's situation. I'm still not convinced it's not. But when he goes and he's got his hand there and he's like, we got unfinished business. You want to think, oh my God, that's going to be cool. That's not Superman. To get out of that, to go all the way to attack Godzilla. He's going to punch the thing, the shackles, the nth metal shackles.
I think he just has to unbind it, honestly.
Yeah, I think that they're going to go back to Metropolis together. It's not like Superman to be like, I'm going to go and settle. He made me look like crap.
Well, that's the thing too. I don't think that when we get to the next issue, it's going to be a handshake. They understand each other. I think Superman will have to lead Godzilla to Metropolis on his own, because Godzilla will want to do it until he sees Mecha Godzilla and then goes after him.
Yeah, he's about to get him with his breath. I do mean Superman. Eric, he's got bad. Well, he's been in a coma for a while. You got a lot of bad breath
still works
when you do that, right? So
it still works with the Arctic breath, Jim.
Okay, that too. So you end up again, though, you had a bunch of things leading into this where I think there's too many things going on, too many plates spinning in this, because we also have the idea that they haven't been able to find Toyman and the Dreamstone. You have Lex that's playing kind of both crazy ways. He wants to be Apex Lex as Mecha G, and then you have this whole crew of the Legion of Doom that really hasn't done anything except gather, and they're heading off to this fight. It's just a rumble in the jungle in here. It's crazy. It's a battle royale, Eric. Don't touch the floor. So they end up going in this all, and it's crazy. We'll see. And even the
R.I.P. Guy Gardner.
You also have a wow moment where it's Beast Boy. It's like, I'm going to be a Jankra.
I'm a con too.
Everything ends up just happening. Boom, 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 boom. Even the idea that you want to see Bat Mecha fight Mecha G, and you have Kong just jump in and just wallop. And it's funny down the line of walloping everybody to kind of get to the next thing. And I thought the art was okay, but it didn't give me, maybe it's just you're not allowing big pages or whatever. Some of the things just didn't play off as wow factor. Especially for me, when you have the skull, I was going to say skull crackers. The skull crawlers come. I'm not a big fan of the legendary stuff. I just want to have fun. I'm coming in. It's funny, like we said in the Doomsday Clock when we had this, I'm here in the side of the Justice League and the DC characters to see what happens, but it's always cool to see all these monsters and things like that, but I'm just not getting the fun. And I think that you nailed the whole thing of it, that the idea of the legendary monsters, like how much fun can you have? But I want the fun from the side of the superheroes and villains.
Those are that much fun. Like, I like giant monsters, Godzilla, King Kong, but even the legendary stuff, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm still rather go back and watch the Heisei or Showa era, and even the Millennium era before these ones. And it's a weird series because not all of them were great. I just think they were more fun overall than what we're getting anymore with the Godzilla and Kong movies. But you're right. The progression, I think the art's fine. But when you have the panel layouts that you do and the way the art is, like, you have gigantic monsters juxtaposed to small superheroes. So you're going to have something that looks bad. Like, here's the small heroes, barely any detail to them, and you never get the scope and size of because of the way the panels lay out, because you can't have gigantic spread pages for the entire book because you get no movement then, so it doesn't really show the action either. So you're really kind of doomed with the idea of this because everything's too big or too small, and you don't get a good idea of what you should be wowed with.
You know what? When they do change it is when Grodd crushes, like, all of a sudden Grodd does look like he's like 20 foot tall when he steps on Guy. Even though you see him when he's coming up, but he's not. But it's just a weird play. But overall, too, like, I'm waiting for Charles Barkley to show up, right, to play basketball with Godzilla. And also, where's Godzuki? That's all I keep thinking. Even then, like I said, I understand, and you're right. And I don't know these legendary monsters as much, but I see they're not as fun as the goofy nonsense. Like, you're not playing a Silver Age type deal with it, but you could do it on the DC and the villain side of things, but everybody's, a little bit more serious, and Brian Buccellato is trying to play like this overall story. But here you see, he's like, oh crap, we got to end this. I don't see how it's going to end, how I wanted it to be, but we might have some fun with it. Maybe we'll have some big battles and things, high five and Superman and Godzilla, maybe Calypso music. I'm not sure, but what would you give this?
I don't think so. I would give it a 6.8 out of 10. I think this is a bit of a downish. You can still have fun with it overall for all the big action scenes. And again, the wow moments might hit you more than they hit me. I just think it's more of a disappointment for the last two issues that we had that really hyped things up for what I thought this was going to be. And it just didn't hit all the marks I wanted to.
Yeah, this is one of the weird books that I was excited for. I thought we'd have fun. And it started off weird with that whole, like, really centering on Superman asking, well, I'm going to ask Lois to marry me. But it did get better as it went on, and it was adding some things in, and then I realized here, maybe he added too many things, but I'm with you. It was a dip. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, but that is it. We'd love to hear what everybody else thinks of that. And again, as I said, we talked about this issue for about 40, 45 minutes, actually, on our Patreon, if you wanted to hear that. And each Thursday, we have a DC Spotlight where 2 books from that week are picked in a poll on the Patreon by the badasses, Get Fresh crew. And we talk about those books at length and have a lot of fun with it. And you can go there. It's Weird Science. Patreon. I was doing pretty good. Patreon.com/Weird Science. And there's links in the description here as well. And you can go. And if you go there now, you can get a 7-day free trial and listen to a bunch of our shows before you commit. So that is it. Thanks, everybody. And we'll talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird Science is the revolution. Weird Science is the revolution.